Great. I'd like to welcome you to MUDRAS, a conversation with Ananda, Balayogi, Bhavanani, and Indu Arora. I see we have lots of people here. Thank you for making time this morning, this evening, this afternoon, wherever you may be today. So where are you joining from? Why don't you post in the chat and share where you're joining us from today? Hi, Indu. I'm joining from New York State, just across the border from the Berkshires in Massachusetts. Indu, where are you joining from?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
And Ananda, welcome.
All the way from across the planet, Pondicherry, India.
Welcome. I see we have people from Las Vegas, Oswego, hello, local for me, Austin, Vermont, Minnesota, Italy, Austria, Fargo, all over. Well, thank you guys for making us a part of the morning. I want to introduce myself. My name is Lizzie Leone. I am the editor of Indu's books, Yoga and Soma. And I've been working with Indu and Agota for a while. You see Ago right down in that on your screen, hopefully the bottom corner somewhere. I don't know where you are on your screen, but there's Ago, and she is the person who is behind the scenes whenever you do something with Indu. Ago is making it happen. So just wanted to welcome you all from the YOGSADHNA team. And again, thank you, Dr. Ananda, Balayogi, Bhavanani, for being here to talk about mudras. So we're going to go through and ask a few questions, and you're welcome to submit your questions. And if we have time, we will add those to our list at the end of the time. So let's jump right into it. So I'm going to share just a little bit about our panel members today. So Yogacharya Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani is director of the Institute of Salutogenesis and Complementary Medicine, that's ISCM, and professor of yoga therapy at the Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth University in Pondicherry. He has served as a member of numerous expert committees of the Ministry of Ayush, including its steering committee of the Yoga Certification Board and the National Board for Promotion of Yoga and Naturopathy. If you want to learn more about Dr. Ananda, you're welcome to just look up Bhavanani and yoga. He tells me this is where you'll find everything that's going on with him. He's the Bhavanani of yoga. So take a look when you have a moment, and you'll just you can't even just say enough about his background. So do some reading afterward. Also, we have Indu Arora. So Indu is an Ayurveda and yoga therapist, and she considers herself a student for a lifetime. She has been sharing yoga philosophy, yoga therapy, and Ayurveda since 1999, and is inspired by and was taught under Kriya Yoga, Himalayan Yoga, Kashmir Shaivism, and Shivananda Yoga lineages. She studied yoga and Ayurveda in the traditional Guru Parampara setting. And let's get started. So we have our main questions today. Just going to start, and we'll ask one question. We'll begin with Ananda and ask one question, and then we'll go to Indu. So the first question, Dr. Ananda, is let's talk about the meaning, exploration of the meaning of the word mudra from texts, tradition, and experience, please.
So first of all, greetings from Pondicherry, India, which is across the planet from so many of you. And such a pleasure to be with my dear younger sister in yoga, my dear Indu, and so many of my yoga family worldwide. This is a very important conversation that we are having today, where we are looking at an aspect of yoga that is either not touched, or if touched very superficially, or misunderstood more than being understood. So it is a topic which I think is really vital to look at. And when we look at the term mudra, the core element of mudra is that which induces a sense of mudita, that which enables cheerfulness to manifest at all levels of our existence. Now, this doesn't mean a fake smile. So mudita is not a fake smile. Mudita is innate cheerfulness, physically, physiologically, psychologically, sociologically, intellectually, and spiritually. That is what mudra implies. That you are coming into a state of cheerfulness. What is that state of cheerfulness? It is a state of anandam. And that is why the ultimate purpose of these practices is for us to experience that true bliss. That is our universal nature. Which is why our Anandamaya Kosha is there for all of us potentially. It is like a light bulb that is there, but the switch has not yet been put on. Through mudra, we are understanding our universality. We are understanding that blissful nature, and immediately we will start to resonate by becoming more cheerful towards ourselves, towards others, in different situations where we find ourselves. My father belonged to a Bengali tantric tradition from Swami Kanakananda Bhrigu. And in our tradition, when we talk about mudra, my father has said that mudra is actually the Devi. It is the form of the Divine Mother herself is what mudra is. So it is not just a throwaway technique that we add on to our yogic list. It is not just something we do to add on to the beauty of an asana, but it is something that enables us to get in contact with that innate divinity, which is the universal Divine Mother herself, which is Prakriti, and that Prakriti, which is that Divine Mother who gives birth to the whole cosmos, the Jagat Janani, is actually what mudra is. So here, this is not just saying, oh, mudra is a gesture, mudra is a seal. These are the common definitions that we come up with. Because mudra can mean a seal. But what type of seal does mudra actually mean? Mudra actually means a seal where you are putting, like a stamp of authority. In fact, in one of our composers, Tyagaraja's Kirtana, he says, in Bandhurutti, he says, Rama, oh Lord Rama, put a stamp on me that I am a Rama Bhakta. Rama Bhaktudhane Mudra Pillayo. He says, put a stamp on me that I am an authentic Rama Bhakta. So mudra as a stamp of authority, that is one. What is it stamping authority? It is stamping the authority that you are ready for the higher inner practices, the subtler practices of yoga. On another way, it is that which unites. Because mudra brings together different flows of energy. So when we talk about it this evening or this morning, what you will see is that we are talking about bringing together different flows. Flows on the right side of the body with flows on the left side of the body. Flows in the upper part of the body with flows in the lower part of the body. All these flows of energies are being brought together, creating a beautiful seal of energy where the energy cannot escape. So that you stop wasting energy. That is the most important thing, because we as human beings, we have lost the capacity to be energy efficient. Our cars are becoming energy efficient. Our refrigerators are becoming energy efficient. Our computers are becoming energy efficient, but we have become energy deficient. Because we are losing energy. We are constantly losing energy because we do not know the secret of energy. We are an energy being. And that is where mudra implies that we start to mindfully work with these energy flows, bringing them together in harmony. And by bringing that sense of harmony of energy, we fulfill ourselves as an energy being, manifesting our highest level of blissful nature and attuning ourselves to the energy of the Divine Mother, that Parashakti herself through the power of mudra. I think I will close this part of my answer for now and let my dear Indu give her wisdom because I love listening to her.
Thank you, Dr. Ananda. Indu, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think it's good. Please accept my greetings. Namaste, Anna. Thank you so much for being here. And it is a sheer delight, a mudita, to be with you, to share this screen with you, this time with you. And thank you so much to all of you who signed up for this and showed your interest in this. I really sincerely hope that you benefit from this time. What is mudra? There are several ways to explain what is mudra. As Anna said, Anandaji said, that mudra can mean a seal, a stamp. Mudra can also mean a circuit or a loop. Mudra can also mean communication, communication at several different levels, interpersonal, intrapersonal, transpersonal. It is a kind of union. It is a kind of attitude. But I personally like to go into the word. If we go into the word mudra, it has two parts. The first part, mud, which is from mudita, which points towards the promise of mudra, especially in context with yoga. Because mudra also means currency, and sometimes having currency in hand can also make us feel mudita. So I want to make sure we're talking about a different kind of mudita here. The context of yoga should not be lost. The second part, my dear friends, have two connotations. One is dhru. The word dra comes from dhru, which means to draw forth. To draw forth from where? From within, which means it is not a superimposed state. It is a revelation of what is already there. As Anandaji, my dear Anna said, like Anandamaya Kosha, it's as if you have turned inside out, a practice that helps you go inside out. The second meaning of the word dra is to release the knots. The knots of what? To release the karmic knots. A practice, again, I will say there are several meanings to the word mudra, but mudras in yoga are to help create almost like a loop, which means a consistent state, that by holding a certain hand gesture, let's say take the example of hand gestures, mudras as hand gestures, it allows you to stay that state that is brought forth, let's say with the practices of pranayama, with the practices of meditation, that momentary glimpse of that state, how to extend and expand on that state, how to maintain continuity of that state. So mudra creates a loop, a circuit. So as long as we are holding, for example, this mudra, which is called chin or gyan mudra, depending upon how we place the hand, it allows us to create this loop, this circuit, which maintains that state of realization, in bracket, hopefully, that, and also there are mudras that are more than hand gestures, that are inner states. So if I have to say mudra, not just by explaining the word mud plus dra, I just feel there is so much power, my dear friends, in Samskrita. Once we start understanding the word itself is a pointer towards something, because in Samskrita, each syllable, the 50 letters, each letter has approximately 20 different meanings. Those 20 different meanings combined by 50 letters create 1,000-petaled lotus, 50 into 20. So each letter has 20 different meanings. So imagine when they combine the permutation and combination of different letters, it creates this variety of experience, plethora of experience. So the verb root, mud, is so important here that is the promise of mudra in yoga. So when we practice not just hand gestures, internal mudras like bandhas, internal mudras that are from the state that is the causal body, for example, yoga nidra. which is sometimes misunderstood just as a technique, or just as the name of a practice, or just a very specific way to do a practice, is actually a state of realization. It's actually a mudra. So if I have to use a sentence to define mudra, I would say mudras are states of mind that reveal through the body, the state of mind expressed through the body. It is, of course, it can be a two-way communication, which means we are doing an external mudra, and that creates a certain effect on our pranamaya kosha, which is very important to understand. Lizzie, you have to remind me how much time is left, because I want to make sure that we follow that. So when we practice a mudra externally, let's say if I'm practicing by joining the index finger pad to the thumb pad, or a therapeutic chikitsak mudra by joining the last two finger pads with the thumb pad, what it does is that superimposition, that seal, that gesture, that loop, what it does is it starts affecting pranamaya kosha. Every mudra leaves a signature on the breath, a very unique signature. So in most of the mudras, we don't have to alter our breathing pattern. We just have to become a witness, and the domino effect continues. So the pranamaya kosha, we know in Yoga Sutras, there is that understanding, that sutra that talks about as the mind, so the breath, as the breath, so the mind. So there is a communication that happens based on if the breath is ironed out, smoothened. So that is what mudras does. It releases those knots, it releases those creases in the breath, in the pranamaya kosha, and that invokes a certain state of mind, a certain attitude, a certain bhavana. And that bhavana allows the mind, the gunas of the mind to settle, and that leads to discernment, that is in the Vijnanamaya kosha. That it almost like slowly clears the path so that what is innermost, inaccessible, becomes accessible. Mudra is not just an accessory. It is what makes those causal, subtle states, which is the promise of yoga, which is yoga, accessible.
Thank you so much, Indu. On to the next question. It's about purpose. Why should practitioners, teachers, and therapists include mudras in their practice and teaching? Indu, would you like to begin?
Yes. It's not that you have to include. What is interesting and beautiful is, how can you exclude? There is no way to exclude. Tell me one thing that you're practicing in yoga, whether it's pranayam, whether it's chatkriya, whether it's asana, whether it is dhyana, whether it is pratyahara, and whether it's yoga nidra, mantra, and I will tell you there is mudra involved without doubt. But what is also a little bit lack of curiosity, or maybe too much compliance, that we don't ask more questions. We just, if someone says, oh, anuloma viloma, you just hold your hand like this and do our focus becomes the technique. We don't understand, oh, what is the meaning of this hand gesture? Why in Bhramri we are plugging the ears, or variations of Bhramri we are closing the eyes and nostril and mouth? Why in Shitali we are rounding the lips? Is there a purpose? Why we are extending the tongue? Is there a purpose? Why during the recitation of Gayatri mantra there are 32 hand mudras suggested to be practiced? Why in Shatkriya called Tratak, why do we fix the gaze at the eye level? These are all mudras. Why in Simha mudra the tongue is stretched out? What I'm trying to say is, we are practicing mudra. And there is something invaluable, non-negotiable about mudras in yoga. If we are missing mudras in yoga, we are missing yoga in yoga. The purpose of mudras in yoga is to connect us, as Anna said, to bring that union. Now, if we are just doing isolated practices, that creates isolated ideas, that glorifies isolated techniques. But when we understand these practices in consolidation, in union, as these things combine, that when I am practicing, for example, Paschimottanasana asana, seated forward fold, although I don't like to say it seated forward fold, because in some ways it's an absolutely long translation. Because Paschima means the west, Uttana means the stretch. It is not just seated forward fold. It is even physically, it is the stretch that is on the backside of the body. Internally, you are guiding the Kundalini through the Paschima Marga, through that west pathway. When it reaches the third eye, there are two pathways for the Kundalini. But we just get lost that how do I touch my toes? We forget the idea of that mudra. That is the promise of yoga. It helps us keep moving forward. So the purpose of yoga, purpose of mudra could be as simple as establishing healthy Agni in modern time, depending upon what we eat and when we eat and how we eat, our digestive fires are affected. How to re-establish healthy Agni, how to balance the doshas, how to gather the mind that is scattered, overwhelmed, dull, absent, how to gather it like a laser beam, how to go beyond gunas into nirguna, how to bring relaxation. That state which is called shavasana is a mudra, is a shava mudra. It's not just 2 minutes of lying down. I mean, I can go on and on. My dear friends, at the age of 16, when I was first introduced to the subject matter of yoga, it was through the initiation in mudras from my first guru, my first teacher. So it's a topic that's so dear to my heart. At that time, at the age of 16, I started having, vision issues. And my teacher, my guru at that time told me to do a mudra, prana mudra combined with tratak, that gazing of a candle flame. In that case, a candle flame, there could be many other things you can gaze on. I did that practice somehow by the grace of the gurus or by the past karmas or upbringing. Somehow I had that sincerity at that time to listen to that voice, to listen to the teacher and do that practice. And I did it sincerely, starting with 30 seconds of gazing, and over a period of time, I could do 30 to 40 minutes, but it was not overnight. It was everyday dedication, practice, sincerity, consistency, along with the trust that what my teacher is saying, it will benefit me. There is something more than technique. So along with that sentiment, and the glasses that I was wearing, I did not wear them for, now I've started wearing them again. So I'm reminded of, I should do that again. We forget things, but I did not have to wear those glasses for 20, 25 years, just attribute, because that's the only change I did. That mudra, prana mudra with tratak, with consistency, dedication, and the lens with which I see yoga in my limited experience with my teachers that I've studied from. There is nothing in yoga that is not touched by mudra, that is not enhanced by mudra, that is not informed by mudra. I really request you, urge you to become curious and not compliant.
Thank you so much, Indu. Dr. Ananda?
Well, after listening to Indu, I thought I will give her a few more of my minutes. You see, when we talk about yoga therapy, we tend to put yoga in a box. And this is why we must remember yoga therapy without yoga is not yoga therapy, it is just therapy. And when we say yoga, it involves all the components of yoga coming together. And as Indu so beautifully put it, all aspects of yoga have been touched and are touched by mudra. At the same time, the question comes when people have certain health challenges. How can you give them something that will help them move from a state of dis-ease to a state of ease? And again, we go back to that definition of mudra, which says you are bringing about unity, you are experiencing cheerfulness, you are expanding your consciousness from the I to the we. And that is how even illness becomes wellness when you expand your consciousness. So it doesn't matter which mudra you are using, because today we have got limited to which are the mudras that will help us for diabetes, which mudras will help me for osteoarthritis. We have got into this piecemeal approach. We have forgotten the wholesome nature of yoga. And this is where the practice of mudra, as Indu was saying, when you do the chin mudra, if you put it downward chin, if you put it up jnana mudra, what is so important is that when you are sitting quietly with that chin mudra or jnana mudra, you are elevating your consciousness. So the moment you elevate your consciousness, there is a transformative shift of consciousness. That transformative shift of consciousness at the level of the mind will percolate down into the physiology, and there will be a transformation, physiologically speaking, where the altered homeostasis will come back to a homeostasis. Altered homeostasis is called allostasis. And when you have a lot of stress, you have an allostatic load. So how you remember what is allostasis? Altered homeostasis is allostasis. So you need to move from allostasis to homeostasis. You have to move from disease to ease. You have to move from the illness to the wellness. You have to shift out of the me, which is the back of the brain. The back of the brain is always thinking me, and making us very mean. You have to shift to the front of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, where you have the power of the buddhi. And it is in that buddhi where Ichcha, Kriya, Jnana Shakti will come alive. The power of intent, the power of action, and the power of wisdom. And the moment this shift in consciousness occurs through the use of Chin Mudra, Jnana Mudra, automatically you are starting to move from disease to ease. Doesn't matter whether you have diabetes, hypertension, cancer, asthma, insomnia, or pelvic floor dysfunction. See, all of that is secondary. What is the root? The root is that we have gone from harmony to disharmony. We have gone from balance to imbalance, from ease to disease. And that is why practices like Jnana Mudra, Chin Mudra, it is very tough as a modern medical doctor and a research scientist to explain how can this change osteoarthritis. And you're not doing this with your knee joint, okay? You're not doing anything with your knee joint or your quadricep muscles or your, abdominal lateral muscles. You're not doing anything. You are doing something which looks so innocuous. And yet what happens? Wow. Because you are changing your consciousness. This is why yoga is primarily a science of transformation leading to transcendence. And that transformation and transcendence is facilitated by the use and the adaptation of mudras. Be it your hand gestures, hasta mudra, or your head gesture. There is a beautiful practice we use, Brahma mudra, where you move your head to 4 directions, right, left, up and down. And this movement is done in tune with the breathing. It is done in tune with the sound. We make a sound of on the right, on the left, as you come down, as you come up. 4 sounds, And what you are doing, you are breathing and moving away, breathing out and coming back. So people say, oh, this is great for your neck. This is great for the trapezius. This is good for the sternocleidomastoid. This is good for upper back, shoulder pain, for frozen shoulder. This is how we limit yoga. No. That is the tip of the iceberg. The whole iceberg is that when you do this practice, you are changing your perspective. You are moving from your limited, blinkered perspective, which is just seeing, I am the only one who knows everything. Nobody else knows anything. I know this is the truth. And suddenly you say, oh my God, there are people out there. Oh my God, there are people out there. There are some people up there. There are some people down here. And so many divergent perspectives. You open yourself to divergent perspectives. And then when you come back, so you are going away from your central perspective, but remember, you come back to your central perspective. Go away, come back. Go away, come back. Go away, come back. So what has happened? You have gone away 4 times to 4 directions, but 4 times you have come back to become balanced in your own central perspective that now has become a wider perspective. And the moment you shift from that limited perspective to a wider perspective, transformation and transcendence will automatically happen. And this is why Brahma Mudra is not just for neck health, because your neck is the most important region that connects the brain with the rest of the body. So all your sensations from the body come to the brain through the neck, and all the motor impulses from the brain go to the body through the neck. And so the moment you bring energy, because when you do this practice, you do it mindfully. When you do it mindfully, the manas, the mind comes into play. And when the mind comes into play, prana will come into play. Yato mana tata prana. Where the mind goes, there the energy flows. And automatically you start to heal yourself, irrespective of what the medical doctors have labeled your pathology. The label is not important. What is important is to restore that sense of ease. And this is why the most important practice that we use therapeutically from the mudra point of view is Brahma Mudra, 4 heads of Brahma, 4 different perspectives, and coming back to enhance your central perspective. Over to you, Lizzie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ananda. Well, we have another question, and Dr. Ananda, are you ready to answer the next one?
Why not?
All right. The next topic is examples, application of mudras in yoga and everyday life.
Ah, beautiful. As Indu so beautifully put it, I remember the first time I heard it was with my mother, Ammaji. You can see her right behind me, that amazing woman who's been my mother, my guru, and now my God. She's everything for me. And Amma, in one of my DVDs on mudras that's available for free on YouTube these days, we stopped selling DVDs, so we said put it for free on YouTube. There's a beautiful place where she talks about the 3 aspects of mudra as communications, modes of communication. And this is where we are using mudra as a method of body talk, what you can call non-verbal communication. So this non-verbal communication can be with others. For example, if I say, stop, you know, the moment I do this and stand there, most probably, even if you don't know what I'm saying, you will stop. That is a interpersonal level of use of mudras. There is the intrapersonal, where we use mudras. In our tradition, we use chin mudra to enhance lower lung breathing. We call it Adama Pranayama. We do another mudra with the thumb in the center, Adi Mudra. Adi means the highest. The highest, the divine is always hidden. I say the divine is always hidden. This is the divine. Shivalinga Mudra. The divine is hidden, obscuration. Hidden behind the veil of Maya. Right? Adi Mudra. We have Chin Mudra, Chin Maya, where you bind. Maya means to bind. You bind yourself into consciousness. Chin Mudra, you open yourself up to consciousness. Chin Maya, you bind yourself into consciousness. Adi, you connect to that highest, which is hidden. And then Mahat Yoga Mudra, where the 2 Adi Mudras come together at the navel, which is also another form of Brahma Mudra, a Hasta Mudra called Brahma Mudra or Mahat Yoga Mudra, where suddenly you will be physiologically breathing low, mid, and upper parts of your lungs automatically. How does this happen? When I do Chin Mudra, it sets up what is called a reflexogenic effect in my respiratory system. Now, there's a difference between reflex and reflexogenic. Reflex means there is a sensory input followed by a motor output. So, for example, your knee jerk reflex. So, somebody taps the patellar tendon under your knee and you kick them in the groin if they're standing in front of you. Okay, so you always stand to the side when you elicited the knee jerk. Okay, most people, they are knee jerk reflex oriented today. We are always, somebody said something, punch them. Somebody did something, unfriend them. Somebody did something, shout at them. So much of reflex. There's a sensory input, motor output with not much consciousness. That is reflex arc. But reflexogenic, it means that you are creating the genesis. You are creating an impact in your nervous system. So you are not worried about the motor response. You are seeding an energy. So when you do Chin Mudra and you place it on your thighs and you breathe mindfully into the lower lungs, you are telling your own nervous system, your brain stem, I want to breathe primarily into the lower part of my lungs. This is the message you are communicating. And when you start to use mudras this way, you will strengthen the connection between your consciousness and your nervous system. So we use mudras in that way. Another very beautiful mudra that is highly recommended is what is called the Shanmukhi mudra, also called Yoni mudra. Shanmukhi because you are closing off the 6 senses, the 5 senses plus the mind. The mind is considered the 6th sense. So Shanmukhi, 6 faces are being closed. And when you do this mudra, your fingers are tracing the exact pathway of the trigeminal nerve. It is astonishing. When you place your fingers and you look at the anatomy of the trigeminal nerves with its 3, that's why it's trigeminal, there are 3 sides to it. It's astonishing. And when you do this mudra and you then add on, you don't even have to do it, but if you add on the Brahmari Pranayama to the Shanmukhi mudra, the impact on your trans-sensory, extrasensory aspects will be so much, you will start to hear things beyond what is said. You will see things that are not shown. You develop those capacities to go beyond the mere senses. You go from being caught in the senses to a master of the senses, what is called Indriya Jaya by Patanjali. So coming back, this mudra is also called Yoni mudra. And I wanted to point this out because so many of us have had so many traumas in our life. So many of us are feeling unsafe wherever we are. And most probably the safest we ever felt was when we were in our mother's womb. And the mother's womb is the yoni. The yoni refers to that capacity. When you do the yoni mudra, you are recreating the experience of safety you had inside your mother, where you didn't have to worry about anything. Your mother took care of everything. And when you do the yoni mudra, you will connect to the universal mother and you will realize, I don't have to worry about anything. The divine mother, she is there to take care of what I need to have done. That is the capacity. So the Shanmukhi mudra, the Yoni mudra, these are amazing practices that create introspective awareness that can then lead you into an automatic state of pratyahara. And without pratyahara, there is no going into the internal aspects of yoga at all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ananda. That was fascinating. Indu, you are up. We're talking about application of mudras.
First of all, I'm learning so much, Anna. Thank you so much for sharing all your decades and lifetimes of experience. It is really, really, what a pleasure, what an honor. Thank you so much. After what Anna said, I don't know what I can add, but I will try. So the practical application of mudras. See, mudras are talked about in various classical texts. Like Gheran Samhita talks about 25 important mudras. Hat Yog Pradipika talks about out of all the mudras, 10 important mudras. Divides the mudras into hastas, which means mudras that are done with hand. Mana, mudras that are done in the mind. That is, for example, Shambhavi mudra. Mudras that are done with kaya, body. So many asanas are misunderstood as mudras. For example, Gomukha, which is translated as cow facing pose or cow head pose, it's actually a mudra. It's a Gomukhi mudra. Then there is Viparita Karni, which is mistranslated as legs up the wall. Just because the legs are up does not mean it's legs up the wall. There is something so rich happening inside in Viparita Karni. It's a mudra. Vriksha asana, it's actually a mudra kriya. What we are doing in these practices is not mimicking a tree. It is the treeness of the tree, the attitude of a tree that will not go away, whether the tree is tiny or big, weak or strong, fallen or rooted. It doesn't matter. You cannot take away the treeness of the tree. But when we shake a little bit in tree because we think it's an asana, we feel we are not doing it correctly. So anyways, let me not get sidetracked, but there are these body mudras, and then there is this mudras, which are called adhara mudras, foundation. For example, Ashwini mudra, Vajroli mudra, Mahamudra, and then bandhas, Mula bandha, Udyana bandha, Jalandhar bandhas, all bandhas are mudras. And they are talked about in Hat Yog Pradipika. Then there are tantric texts like Vijnana Bhairav Tantra that talks about Bhairav Mudra. It's one of the classical Kashmir Shaivism text that talks about more than 100 different dharanas, concentration methods to go into the state of samadhi. And one of them is Bhairava. And it's such a beautiful, we're talking about everyday application. This mudra, the way it is suggested to be practiced is just relax the lower jaw and open up your mouth as if you're about to say something. I want you to try that. Just relax your lower jaw, part your lips, and then as if you're about to say something, but you don't. And observe what happens to your breath. What happens to the state of mind? What happens the moment you open up your mouth as if you're about to say something? There is already natural suspension of breath. There is keval kumbhak. That is natural, as if there is shunya, nothing in the mind. That is that uprising bhairava, that filling up of emptiness. That is bhairava. Every day, how much do we talk? But we don't pay attention to the moment we are about to talk. That is a mudra. That is everyday mudra. Every single time we open our mouth to say something, we can actually take a U-turn, as Ananda ji talked about, that there is no yoga without pratyahara. Take a U-turn and abide in that state for as long as it lasts effortlessly. The mudras that we practice, we can divide them or understand them for the sake of understanding. We can divide them that, oh, as Ananda ji was talking about, the everyday communication, stop, come here, and a very common hand gesture, that is namaskar, which there is a lot that is being talked about namaskar, but this namaskar mudra is beautiful. You open up your hands, you can make it into an offering, anjali. You fold your hands, you create a connection. You bring the hand to the heart, it becomes interpersonal communication. You bring the hands to the nasal region, it becomes intrapersonal. Namaskar to your own prana, recognition to your own prana. You bring it to the forehead or above the head, it becomes transpersonal communication. So just namaskar mudra has so many variations, depends upon where you keep your hands. There is so many nuances. Maybe we can become curious about Namaskar itself, which we utilize on such a regular basis, that there is so much more. Then the other way mudras can be practiced, as Anna was sharing, is from disease to ease. The chikitsa, the therapeutic practices. And one of the mudras among all the hundreds of the mudras that I can share with you, which can benefit everyone, is called Mahamrityunjaya mudra. Or it's also known as Apana Vayu Mudra. So let's see how we do it. We fold the index finger at the root of the thumb. We join the middle and ring finger pad with the thumb pad. Listen, pad, not tip, pad. That is important. When we are practicing Chikitsak mudras, it's important where to press. Little finger stretched out to the best of your capacity. This mudra is a tridoshik mudra. It helps specify all the doshas. It's a combination of two mudras, Vayu, where you bring the index finger at the root of the thumb and press it down. Now, according to Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is what gives context to yoga, Vata is the root cause of most of the diseases. The main root cause, the main disturbance is in Vata. And how can it not be? We are called Prani. Prani means beings of prana. We are animated beings. That animation is the wind element. And that animation needs calibration from time to time. We are not even keeping up with the circadian rhythm. We are not even doing dinacharya, ratricharya. So of course, these pranas get disharmonized. So the vata has to be pacified. If vata is pacified, a lot of the things will calm down. Then the middle two fingers. This, just if we join the middle two finger pads with the thumb pad, it creates apana mudra. And apana is the downward outward current, and it is a kind of prana. But it is the kind of prana that nourishes the body when it leaves the body. All the other pranas, they stay in the body to nourish the body. But apana nourishes by leaving the body. But how many times we hold apana? How many times we hold a sneeze, a cough, a belch? How many times we postpone the urge for urination, sleeping, crying, laughing, defecation? This is all apana leaving the body. But we suppress it. So to re-inspire, to rewire, to say our body, it's okay, these are normal activities, to laugh, to cry, to belch, to sleep, to yawn, this is all normal. So this Apan Vayu mudra would be a mudra that you can practice during meditation, a couple minutes before asanas, a couple minutes after asanas, somewhere between two asanas. If you feel mild headache, if you feel nausea, just sit in Apan Vayu mudra. Just don't combine it with Natarajasana. Don't combine it with Paschimottanasana. Don't combine it with any other asana. This is not to be practiced in dynamic asanas. It is to be practiced in Nishispanda, or which is meditative practices, to have to feel the effect. So this mudra can be practiced with one hand or with both hands. And it's a really good mudra to practice on an everyday basis for minimum 2 minutes. Ideally to be practiced 3 times a day to keep up that rhythm, because each mudra generates a rhythm that stays for 6 to 8 hours in the body. So we have to continue spinning that rhythm, that impact in the body. And the last mudra that I would say can be really, really beneficial for all of us is this mudra that Anna was also talking about. Chin mudra or Gyan mudra, depending upon, you keep the palm facing up or down. And don't worry about it. Howsoever it adds pleasantness to your state of mind, do that. Keep it up or down. Sometimes we go too much into logic, too much into overthinking, and that is when we miss the point. You hold the mudra and let's see what adds pleasantness to your posture. But understand that this mudra is not just an okay sign. This mudra is deep symbology. As Anna was talking about, this last 3 fingers represents Maya, that bondage. I will whatever little tiny bit I know a little bit more, or Anna already knows, but he did not share with the limited time he had, I will add that. Index finger represents Prakriti. Thumb represents Purusha. And when you join that movement of Prakriti towards Purusha, that is yoga. That hollow that is there in the loop, that is that state, that is shunya, fullness of emptiness. And the last three fingers represent the bondage of the divisions of time, past, present, future, the bondage of three kinds of sufferings, that which comes from our ignorance, that which comes from our karmas, that which comes from all the other sources outside any. These are the three kinds of sufferings affecting the physical body, subtle body, causal body, that keeps us bound in the unconscious, subconscious, and conscious state of mind, commonly known as the dream, sleep, and awake state of mind. But when we hold this mudra, it is a symbolic representation. It is a reminder that in this state of yoga, we are beyond sattva, rajas, tamas. We are beyond the bondage of three bodies. We are beyond the bondage of the three states of mind, awake, sleep, and dream. But the moment we open it up, that singularity becomes duality. That duality becomes trinity. That trinity becomes plurality. The moment we open it up, it becomes 5 pranas, 5 koshas, 5 elements, 5 indriyas, sensory, motor. Everything becomes plurality. So this mudra is symbolic representation of yoga itself. Don't just practice it as you add seasoning over food. Practice it as salt in food, that which is non-negotiable. Practice this mudra along with meditation, along with even everyday sitting, talking. You can hold the hand in this mudra. Knowing with knowledge. Knowledge is important here, my dear friends. Knowledge comes from curiosity. Knowledge comes from the desire and the acknowledgement that no matter how much I know, there is so much more than that I don't know. So there is ignorance. How can I stay curious? How can I ask more questions? So when you become curious about so simple, this mudra, it can become a complete yoga in your hands. It can become a constant reminder that what is yoga all about? It's not just for the balance of doshas. It's not just from moving from tamas to sattva. It's going beyond all of that. And it's not something that you will find somewhere outside. It's mudra. It's going to rise from within. Become curious about this aspect of yoga. Whether you are joining your hands in namaskar, whether you are joining the index finger with the thumb in meditation, or your everyday communication. Because everyday communication is filled with mudras. We say someone, it's so nice to meet you. Is it? Let's catch up soon. Do we really mean it? When what we say, what we think, and what we feel are one, that is mudra. Because there is truth in it. So observe your everyday communication. See how many mudras you are doing which are truthful and how many of them are not. Lizzie.
Thank you so much, Indu. I feel like both of our speakers today have really got my mind spinning. I feel like all of this is the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. Thank you so much for answering these questions. We're going to move on to a few questions we have where we're just going to, I'm going to throw a question to each of you. You have a few minutes to answer. So we'll begin with Dr. Ananda. The first question is it okay to hold mudras while doing Kapalabhati or mental Anuloma Viloma?
See, I think what Hindu has been saying, I have been saying has already answered that. Mudras are not just an add-on topping to your pizza. So, it's not that I'm doing Kapalabhati, can I add a mudra? I'm doing Anulom, can I? What is the mudra to be used in that practice? Now, some traditions, when they do Kapalabhati, they use mudras, some don't, but even not using is a mudra. For example, when you take your palms without putting, any work with the fingers, you just a flat palm on your thigh, it becomes Uru Mudra. Uru means the thigh. So it is already Uru Mudra. So you cannot say that you're not doing a mudra, as Indu rightly pointed out, it's already there. So in some traditions, just the Uru Mudra will be done when they do Kapalbhati. Some people may do a Chin Mudra, Jnana Mudra. So what I always suggest in this is, whatever your teacher in their tradition has taught, please follow that. Because traditions have come over thousands of years. They have a certain practice that has been tried out and tried out and tried out and tried out, and wisdom has been generated. And so if in your tradition, whatever the tradition may be, they say do it with Chin Mudra, please do it with Chin Mudra. I have no issues with it. If someone says you can do Uru Mudra, do it. So what is most important here is following the system that you have been taught. As Indu pointed out, in her, when she was 16, she got exposed to mudra. Follow that tradition. It doesn't mean that today go to one teacher, tomorrow another teacher, third day a third teacher, and then you get all mixed up. People get mixed up because of that. So my sincere, dedicated appeal, not even advice to people, is follow what your teacher says, follow that. That will be the best for you. Now, in our tradition, when we do Kapalbhati, normally we just do the Uru Mudra. We don't do any other mudra. This is how we do it. When we do practices like alternate nostril breathing, people use what is called, some people call it Vishnu Mudra, they call it Nasika Mudra, they're different names, which is common in yoga. Diversity is to be celebrated in yoga. So don't worry about it. But we use a practice. For us, the Vishnu Mudra is where we split it apart like this. And so here, one finger represents the flow in the Ida, one in the Pingala, and the middle one is the Sushumna. So that we are, while we doing this alternate nostril breathing, we are constantly reminding ourselves that the energies are threefold, and that there is the Ida, Pingala, Sushumna that we are working with. We are not just doing alternate nostril breathing. We are working with those energy conduits called the nadis. So this is how we do it. So if you find somebody with this doing the pranayama, they are Geethananda trained. If they are doing Kapalabhati with the hands, usually on the thigh flat, most probably it is Geethananda tradition. So I think that is the way I would answer this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ananda. So I'd like to ask everybody out there who's watching today, how are you feeling? Are you where's your head right now? Are you feeling humbled and feel blessed to be part of this meeting? Thank you. Yeah, post in the chat. What's do you have a takeaway? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling inspired? I see a lot of inspiration in the chat. Enriched, grateful, like a sponge absorbing this invaluable knowledge, energized, grateful, inspired, and wanting to learn more. Yeah, so much. There's so much here, and it is like I feel like my head is going to explode in a good way. a lot of jumping off points here. Stoked. Yes, that's it. I do want to mention too, if in learning more, Indu Arora has a MUDRAS book out, and Dr. Ananda, you have so many books. I don't know if you want to speak to any of your books that might be relevant here.
Well, I always recommend my father's MUDRAS book, which is one of the oldest books on these teachings, where we give a lot of importance on the energy flows, and much of what we have talked about today you'll find in it, but a special emphasis on what we call the Oli Mudras, which are the Vajroli, Amaroli, Sahajoli, which are done in a very specific manner in our tradition. And I'm always scared to talk about it because then people say, can you just teach us those? And in our tradition, there's a step-by-step approach. But these are the type of practices that are there in that book. And you just have to Google and it will all come up. So as I told Lizzie yesterday, I'm not into selling books or DVDs or even selling myself. So those who look for me, Bhavanani and yoga, because there's no other Bhavanani in yoga. So it's the easiest Google search.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to share some resources with people. Definitely, I appreciate that. The next, sorry about that. The next question I'm going to ask Indu. The question is, how long should one practice mudras before teaching them?
That's a great question. I think it's important from time to time to ask yourself this question: why are you practicing yoga? Because maybe there was an initial spark that led you towards a book, a teacher, a certain practice. But that spark starts to diminish or we start to get distracted. The purpose of yoga is not to teach yoga, at least the limited awareness that I have or how I have studied from my teachers. I remember I was 19 when I lived with my teacher and studied from her. And it was the biggest shock of my life when she told me, go and teach. Because I felt there is neither sky above me nor earth below me. Because such a giant, someone who is not teaching yoga, someone who is living yoga, is telling me to go and teach. How do I even open my mouth? How can I say anything that would be beneficial or purposeful? The reason I'm sharing, I wouldn't call it teaching, is because I have this debt of wisdom, the wisdom that has been shared by teachers. And I don't want to, it may sound morbid, die with it. I want this knowledge to live. I wish for this knowledge to live, to pay that debt. So how long to practice before you teach is, first make it your own. Let it lead to some realization. Let it lead to some experience. Go somewhere with it. Go beyond. One of my teachers with whom I stayed, and she's the one who told me, she gave the name YOGSADHNA, that go and teach by the name YOGSADHNA. She said that don't learn for the sake of verbal karate. Don't use knowledge just for argumentativeness or to prove something or to teach. Once the cup is full, it will automatically flow. Once you are filled with a certain experience, what else can you do? What else can a flower do except for when it blooms, it pleases the eyes and it spreads the fragrance? You become that. And when you become that, without even saying a word, you're sharing a lot. So who am I to answer this question that when should you start teaching? You ask your soul, you ask yourself whenever you feel ready, but let it lead to some realization. Let there be some tapasya, some work, some sincerity that you put into what you have learned. Don't just pass on intellectual knowledge. Pass on embodied knowledge.
Thank you so much, Indu. I just want to share on your sharing of that story that it is the 25th year of YOGSADHNA. So I just want to say congratulations to YOGSADHNA and to Indu on that front. So I'm going to next question and hand it on over to Dr. Ananda. What's the significance of holding chin mudra in meditation?
Yeah, actually, we have already talked about it. It is to attune ourselves to the higher consciousness. Because meditation is not just sitting with your eyes closed. Because today, to sit with your eyes closed, we label it meditation. Sitting with your eyes closed is sitting with your eyes closed. That's all. Meditation is a state where you have become one with the object of contemplation. There is a transcendence of dichotomy, duality between you and the object. So this doesn't just happen by closing your eyes and sitting still. So the Chin Mudra is a message. Now, with the body, you can message your mind. So you are messaging your mind saying, I am sitting still. I am trying to curtail my sensory engagements. I am trying to go on an inner journey. Oh, dear mind of mine, will you please open up your secrets so that I can experience what you are, what consciousness is. That is what happens when you do Chin Mudra or Jnana Mudra. You are sending a signal from the body, from the soma. You are sending a signal to the psyche. So it is a somato-psychic communication that will then enhance that state of meditation. Meditation is a state, it is not an action. Meditation is a noun, not a verb. It is a state. And dhyana requires an elevated consciousness. Now, most of the time in modern psychology, there's a greater interest in the subconscious, unconscious, pre-conscious. But in yoga, the greater interest is in the superconscious. And if you want to grow in consciousness, the Chin Mudra will manage that process more efficiently, more effectively, more naturally, and more spontaneously.
Thank you so much. The next question was just in the chat here. Can you talk about, I'm going to send this to Indu, please. Can you talk about the difference between drishti and mudra? Is a drishti only a mudra done with the head organs to collect prana on a certain point?
That's a great question. First of all, let's understand. Drishti relates to the way of seeing or the process of seeing. It can also relate to a process of awareness, not just something that is limited to the eyes, but that which is open for the insight also, an inner awareness. Now, there are several drishtis. For example, you can practice Trikonasana, commonly known as triangle pose, and gaze at your extended leg, big toe, or extended arms, thumb. And that becomes Angushta Drishti. At the same time, you can be practicing Simha Mudra, lion gesture, and fix your gaze between the eyebrows. And that can become Bhru Madhya Drishti. Now, that is the physical gaze. But when you shift internal gaze, awareness between the brows, that becomes Shambhavi. So there is a difference here between drishti and mudra. But drishti can also become mudra because the purpose of that drishti is to create a loop, a circuit, a point of focus, a point of dharana. You know, you can move your awareness in so many different eyes, gaze in so many different directions, and it's all a drishti. You can move up, and that becomes Akashi Mudra, as if gazing into the space. You can look between the eyebrows, that becomes Bhru Madhya Drishti. You can look at the tip of the nose or in front of the nose, it becomes Nasagra Drishti. You can roll the tongue at the back of the throat, and even though you're physically not looking there, your mental awareness goes towards that bindu in that marma in the root of the tongue, Shringhataka, and that becomes the Khechari mudra. You can look into your heart and that becomes Atma Drishti. But all of these drishtis, let's not get lost in just the technique of it or the definition of it. The purpose is take a U-turn. You can take a U-turn from here, you can take a U-turn from here, you can take a U-turn from here. Where are you ready to take a U-turn from? So mudra is a state of mind expressed through the body. From that perspective, drishti is a kind of mudra. But the drishti mudras can be physical body mudras, sthula mudras, sukshma mudras, for example, manomani, shambhavi, which means that is related to the subtle body. Then it can also become para mudra, sthul, sukshma, para. And when it becomes para, think about it, your gaze, this prakriti is dissolving into purusha in the state of yoga nidra. That is paramudra. The same drishti, where and how matters. In yoga, not just content. Context matters more than content. Lizzie.
Thank you, Indu. The next question, Dr. Ananda. So I'm going to try to kind of put a couple questions together. So I hope I'm not being greedy, but if you can answer whatever you take from the question, that would be great. So some people are asking, what do you do if you can only use one hand, or if you can't always make the mudra properly due to arthritis or other issues? How does one go about mudras in that way?
Yeah. This is a major issue with a lot of people. And the first point I always suggest is do the best you can. So the first thing is do the best you can to be as accurate as possible. So this is the first bottom line. The second is there is something called the power of visualization. And this power of visualization can be as good at times as if you are actually doing the practice. So what you can do if you have a limb that is stroke affected, or arthritis that is limiting it, or there are some deformities due to different health issues, you could sit quietly, contemplate your hands doing that mudra, your body doing that mudra, where it becomes a mano mudra now, because you're using your mental visualization to visualize yourself. But visualize is not just thinking of the final product. It should be a step-by-step visualization. So what will be the first movement you need to do? What will be the second movement you need to do? How do you come to the third part? How are you holding it? When you're holding it, what do you feel? It should be as embellished. The visualization should be as embellished as if you're actually doing it. And if you do it that way, I guarantee you, you'll get the same benefit of somebody doing it physically. So the power of the mind, the power of visualization. In our culture, it is often said there was a great king who built a huge temple for God. And on the day he was going to inaugurate the temple, he invited God to come to inaugurate it. In India, we inaugurate everything. So, you need to call somebody. So who better to call for inaugurating a temple than God himself? And when he asked God about it, God said, I'm very busy that day. Already there's another temple being inaugurated. And this king's like, I'm the king of this whole place, and who else is building a temple? And then they find out that ultimately, to cut the story short, there is a lady who in her mind has been worshipping the divine. And in her mind, she was building a temple brick by brick. And the divine was more interested to go to inaugurate her temple than the actual brick and mortar, hard, stool structure that the king had created. So whenever you cannot do an asana, whenever you find that certain practices are beyond your physical capacity, remember, your mind is the most powerful tool in the whole universe. use it properly. Use it like a laser beam, and you will find the impact.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ananda. I have a final question here for Indu. All right, the last question is about menstruation. I learned that it's not advised to practice mudras during menstruation, except maybe apana mudra. Can you confirm this?
That's a great question too. See, when we talk about specific situations or conditions, the practices that are in yoga or the suggestions that are in Ayurveda are not disease specific, they are person specific. So there is so much to be explored more about that query. What is the age of the person? What else is going on? How is the sleep? How is the digestion? There is so much more that I have as a question before giving an answer that may feel like, okay, this for this. However, I will add this, that don't think of mudras as just hand mudras. Yes, among hand mudras, apana mudra may be beneficial in menstruation cycle if someone has the interrupted flow or irregular cycle, because it strengthens the apana prana, the practice. But even apana mudra can be done with variations. For example, you join the middle two fingers with the thumb pad, or you press them down with the thumb. Or the third variation, you bring the thumb to the bottom of the three fingers. There are several variations. The hand represents the Panch Tattvas. The ring finger represents the Prithvi Tattva, earth. Little finger, Jal or Apa, water. Thumb, Agni, that is fire. Index, wind, that is air or Maruta. Middle finger, ether, Akasha, that is ether. Then when you fold the finger and press it down with the thumb, or you join it at the pad, or you bring the thumb to the bottom of the finger, makes a difference. So when you're joining the index finger pads with the thumb pad, that is just to harmonize the flow of that element, of that tattva. But if I press it down and press it with the thumb, that is to reduce. So the same apana mudra would be different for someone who has too much flow. In that case, the suggestion would be to fold the fingers, versus someone who has too less flow and irregular flow. In that case, join the middle two finger pads with the thumb pad. However, apart from the one hand mudra, there are so many mudras that you can practice. You can practice the Shava mudra, Shavasana mudra. You can practice, as Ananda ji shared, practice the manasik, the mental practice of Anuloma Viloma instead of closing the nostrils. There is so much to practice and so much to explore apart from just hand mudras in yoga. But again, context matters. Yoga knowledge, when it is extremely limited, it creates the laws of do's and don'ts. So learn more, but at the same time, keep your mind open, not restricted. There is so much more that can be practiced during menstruation cycle, apart from asanas, the physical movement-based asanas, which are beneficial. All the sukshma kriyas, all the subtle practices are so much more powerful during menstruation cycle. Practice mantras, practice those mudras, practice shavasana, practice shithalikaran, practice yoga nidra, practice dhyana. In fact, the whole iceberg which is hidden, it's open to those who wants to practice yoga, and it becomes more accessible during menstruation cycle. Don't think of it as if you've hit an iron wall. Think about it as a U-turn. Lizzie.
Thank you so much, Indu. Thank you to both of our speakers today. I'm going to give you each a few minutes for some closing thoughts. Dr. Ananda, can we begin with you, please?
Well, first of all, it's wonderful to be with all of you, to have this exploration. And it is always good to understand how much there is in the vast universe, because the teachings are vast. And it's like we are standing on the shore and we are looking at the ocean. So depending on which shore we are on, we see only one part of the ocean. And this is why one has to grow in spirit. One needs to expand consciousness. One needs to understand multiple perspectives. And one needs to dive deep into that ocean of knowledge and wisdom through sadhana. And this is why all of this cannot be an intellectual exercise. Yoga cannot be an intellectual exercise. It has to be an experience that is to be lived. And the more you live these teachings, the more the teachings will open up to you, because the teachings will feel safe. But if you start learning the teaching, saying, which one can I get here to go and teach tomorrow, and which one can I use for my teacher's training, which one can I use in my therapeutic practice, and what can I sell on the internet? If you go with that, the teachings say, oh my God, this is a very unsafe situation, and they all go into their shell. And that is why it is so important for us to be respectful of the tradition, grateful to the teachings, and we should love yoga, because yoga is our divine mother. When we have that love, when we have that respect, when we have that gratitude, we will be blessed by a bountiful wisdom that will flow down like the beautiful rain that is a blessing on the parched earth. I think that is the most important thing that we can gain as an attitude, as a mudra for our very being, for our very life. I think that's what I will stop with.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ananda. Indu?
First of all, I want to say thank you so much, Anna, for sharing all that you have. I know I'm repeating myself, but I think it's totally worth to repeat myself here. All those decades of practice and tapasya and the Gitananda lineage and your karmas, and you're sharing with us in this 1.5 precious hour, all that essence, how, it's very humbling. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for accepting to be here and to share. It means a lot. What can I say as last words is, I can simply share what has become my inspiration. And I hope, I can only hope that that spark travels. You know how when we love someone, we think about that person even in their absence? There is a deep longing. I hope you develop that longing for yoga. You don't just remember it when you're stretching or folding or molding or holding something. I hope that it becomes you have that relationship with that body of knowledge, with that philosophy. Because beneath all those techniques, there is that philosophy. That is the foundation, that is the root. It's okay that each one of us has different roles. Maybe some of you are teachers, some of you are teachers in training, some of you are yoga therapists, some of you are just yoga practitioners. As my teacher says, we all have different portfolios. But internally, I hope you assign yourself one portfolio, that is to be a student. To be sincerely, genuinely be a student, and nothing more than that. The moment we become a student, it comes from a place of humbleness, sincerity, dedication, and curiosity to know more, not from a place of what is called FOMO, fear of missing out, not from that place, but from a place of genuine inquiry, that there is so much more, that your foundation is that santosha, contentment. Your foundation is not that greed, insecurity. But as a student, you seek more, you learn more, you find different ways to come to that one dot. My teacher says that there are 360 degrees around a dot, 360 different ways to come to that dot. You may have explored one. Don't get so fixated on it, so narrow-minded, and then go into that verbal karate. My way is better than your way. My teacher is better than your teacher. No, even if you're not exploring those 359, at least in the mind of your mind, in the eye of your mind, know that there is more. How can I stay humble? How can I stay open? How can I keep learning? How do I learn how to ask questions? That's the first lesson I learned from my teacher, how to ask questions. I'm still learning. I hope you also keep learning. And thank you so much for sharing your precious time, your focus, your energy in this time on this subject with us. It's so wonderful that our paths have crossed. If we don't ever meet again, my heart is content that we have met. But if we do, let us walk together on this path of yoga, just sharing with each other our limited experiences.
Wow. Well, thank you both for this 90 minutes. I feel like I'm sure I speak for everyone here with my heart is full, right? I'm going to just share in the chat there some social media links for Dr. Ananda and for Indu. They're great places to find more of their teachings and their wisdom. I'm going to mention too that Indu, again, happy birthday to YOGSADHNA, your 25 years. And there is Mudra training coming up, which is going to be very special because that is in May. And that's beginning May 11th. You can find information about that on Indu's website, which I have included the link for. You see yogsadhna.com over in the chat. The replay of this conversation will be available for 15 days. You'll receive an email link. Indu said you're welcome to share this, right, with other people, the video. And the chat transcript will be also just the chat, not a transcript of the conversation, but the chat will be available as well along with the replay. So thank you both so much. And I believe that the books, Dr. Ananda's father's book, the link was over in the chat. I think somebody kindly put that in there. And Indu's book is Mudra, the Sacred Secret, which is also available on yogsadhna.com. So I hope to see you all again. And I think it would be really awesome if you could put your thoughts in the chat, any parting words you have for Indu or Dr. Ananda in these last couple minutes so they can, get a little taste of your heart. I see this has been such a joy to attend in gratitude. Thank you so much. Thank you for inspiring me. My heart is full. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. I so enjoyed your discussions. Gratitude. Many thanks. Happy birthday. Thank you for the insightful presentation of mudras. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Namaste. God bless and happy learning. Thank you so much, Dr. Ananda and Induji. I know you both have taken our consciousness up a few notches by your words and presence. Thank you so much. Session with mudita state. What a vast subject. Much love. Thank you. Gratitude and amazing collaboration between two amazing beings. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. So humble for sharing your knowledge. I feel deeply touched by both your sharing. Gorgeous. Thank you both for your presence and devotion and sharing. Gratitude for getting this chance to connect. Wow, your humbleness and love of yoga are to be commended. Thank you. And with that, everyone, I think that is it. Thank you both so much. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. Be
Thank
blessed.
you.
Be a blessing.
Oh, thank you so much. I see so many familiar faces. How wonderful.